أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. Before we get into today's discussion, I would like to do a quick recap of what we discussed in the previous discussion so that I can connect it to the discussion of today. We started discussing the chronological events related to the martyrdom of Abbas bin Ali alayhim salam in the previous discussion. A quick recap so that we can connect it to today's discussion. Point number one, we mentioned in the previous discussion also that we are discussing the events from the 2nd to the 6th century. So almost to the end of 6th century, there's one narrative remaining. And the reason we did that is because the narrative from now has some details which were not there in the earlier narratives. Okay, that is point number one. Point number two, if you notice that Abu Mikhnaf gives very few, rather little, all as if there was no detail at all related to the events of martyrdom of Abbas alayhi salam. Okay, the only thing he does is that he tells his brothers to go and fight, okay, and sacrifice themselves for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and that is why Sheikh Yusuf al-Gharawi then comes and comments and says that we will take the narrative from Sheikh Mufid, okay, who is earlier 5th century. That was point number two. Point number three, we mentioned that there's a need for research, there's a need for research on the whole issue of this word. So is there a confusion by the narrator on the whole issue of wiratha and marthia? Okay, so if you look at Abu Mikhnaf, he says that he tells his brothers, go and fight so that I can do marthia for you. But later then you see Ibn Sa'ad, for example, he says, go and fight so that I can inherit you, wiratha, okay? Was this two words are so similar? Was it a narrator's misunderstanding? Or no, these were two narratives. There's a research which is required, okay? Number four, we mentioned that the narrative, earlier narratives like Ziyarat Nahiya and Sheikh Saduq's narrative say that the hands were severed. But there are no details at all as to how these hands were severed, okay? Point number five, Abbas was made the flag bearer of the army. The reason I'm mentioning this is because later we'll see a narrative coming up which is a bit different narrative. Number six, his clothes were snatched away, taken away after his martyrdom. Number seven, why was Abbas alayhi salam named as Saqa? Okay, and then the whole discussion related to water which we had in our previous discussion. Number eight, this was the narrative being shared in the earlier narrative, is that Imam Hussein and Abbas alayhi salam went together, okay? Imam was thirsty and Abbas accompanies Imam to go towards Furat to fetch water, and then he is martyred. And finally there's a narrative from Ibn Hibban which we don't see from any other scholar, and that is the narrative of Imam Hussein being martyred earlier than Abbas alayhi salam. That's how I understood. So I don't know, is my understanding wrong? But that's how I understood that Imam got martyred earlier. Okay, so this was a quick recap of the discussion we had in our previous discussion. A remaining discussion in the end of 6th century is from a scholar by the name of Ibn Shahr Ashub in 588 Hijrah. Okay, he is now, the reason I stopped here was because he's the first scholar now to come and give us details about how the right hand was chopped off and how the left hand was severed. Okay, he's the first scholar now going into a bit of details. Still, the details doesn't have any discussion about water, skin and mashk and all that. Okay, so notice, he went towards the water, picked up the water. While coming back now, there was somebody sitting in the ambush to attack Abbas alayhi salam. He says, فَضَرَبَهُ عَلَى يَمِينِهِ. He hit his right hand and he severed his right hand. So as a normal warrior would do, notice it's a very natural narrative. فَأَخَذَ السَّيْفِ بِشِمَالِهِ. Okay? Because his right hand was severed, he took the sword in the left hand, not the mashk, not the water skin. Okay? He took the sword in the left hand and he started fighting. When he fought, his left hand was also severed, and after that he mentions فَقَتَلَهُ الْمَلْعُونَ بِعَمُودٍ مِّنْ حَدِيدٍ. So the enemy came and hit him with a piece of iron, and then Imam started crying for him. This is what Ibn Shahr Ashub is presenting in 588 Hijrah. Okay? So notice there's no discussion about water skin and mashk and water on the teeth and all that. Okay? Then we come to 654 Hijrah. Ibn Jawzi, in his Tadhkiratul Khawas, he mentions an opinion. He says that وَقَالَ الشَّعْبِ أَوَّلُ قَتِيلٍ مِّنْهُمْ الْعَبَّاسِ بْنِ عَلِي. So he's now proposing another narrative that Abbas was the first one to be martyred from the family of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Okay? So this is a narrative which we don't see earlier. Then we come to 664. Sayyid ibn Tawus in his Luhuf, he is sharing the same narrative which Sheikh Mufid had shared, with the narrative that Abbas and Imam Hussein went to fight together, went to take water together. Okay? The only thing which he adds is this statement, which we don't see it earlier. وَبَسَطَ يَدَيْهِ تَحْتَ حَنَكِهِ حَتَّى امْتَلَأَتْ رَاحَتَاهُ مِنَ الدَّمِ. Okay? So when Imam was hit an arrow, because he wanted to drink the water, and the water, that arrow became a barrier, the blood became the barrier from him to drink the water. Yeah? So now Sayyid ibn Tawus is adding this more detail, that Imam kept his two palms under his chin so that it filled with blood, and then he threw it towards the sky. Okay? This was something we were not having in the earlier narratives. Ibn Numana, or Ibn Nima, whatever the pronunciation, in 680 Hijrah, this is the end of the 7th century now, he now comes and adds one more thing. He adds a few things. So first is, he says, when Imam alayhi salam, the thirst had become such that وَبَلَغَ مِنْهُ اللُّغُوبِ. Okay, this is something we don't see it earlier, that the thirst had reached to the level of Imam getting exhausted. Okay? Now, there was a narration we had seen that on the night when Imam sent Abbas alayhi salam towards fetching water, yes, there was a narration which says that they were on the state of dying, and then Imam sent for water the 50 people. Here, it's on the day of Ashura, Imam is in the state that is totally exhausted. Okay? And this is the time now he decides to go fetch water. Okay? So the narrative is the same, to go fetch water, but there's exhaustion felt in Imam alayhi salam. This is number one. The second thing which he adds is something which we don't see there. Now when Imam goes with Abbas alayhi salam to take water, he now says, فَجَاءَ كِتَابُ عُبَيْدُ اللَّهِ ibn Ziyad إِلَى عُمَرْ ibn Sa'ad. Now this is something we didn't see earlier. Okay? That there was a letter which came from Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad to Umar ibn Sa'ad telling Umar ibn Sa'ad that you have to block them from accessing the water. Okay? So from this understanding of Ibn Numa, it seems like the command of blocking the water came much later, not on the 7th of Muharram, rather much later. Okay? This is a second point which he adds. A third point which he adds in his narrative is a discussion between Imam alayhi salam and the person from the enemy who was blocking him from accessing water. Okay, so that enemy tells Imam alayhi salam, "Ala tanzuru ila al-ma," don't you see at the water how beautiful it is, but you will not drink a drop from it. Okay, so Imam had come for water. Now there's a discussion going on. This discussion was not mentioned in the earlier narratives. And addition number 4, Imam then goes towards water. Zur'a bin Aban, okay, is the one who now hits the Imam with that arrow. Imam then does dua against him. This is also not narrated in the earlier narratives. Allahumma qtulhu atasha wa la taghfir lahu abada. Oh Allah, kill him thirsty and don't forgive him at all. The Zur'a bin Aban. Okay? Because he became a barrier for Imam to drink water. Okay? Now, a 5th narrative which Ibn Numa adds is about this Zur'a bin Aban now. So this Zur'a bin Aban, because Imam made dua against him, the Rawi says that his stomach, he was a person who used to scream out of heat coming out of his body. Okay, so as much as water he would put, the ice he would put, the wind which would be blown towards him, it would not calm him down. So as much water he would drink, he say I'm thirsty, he would drink water, he would need more water. He would drink more water. Okay, to the level, the riwayah says that حتى انقدت بطنه كانقداد البعير. Okay, so his stomach and his belly opened up. That's how much water he drank. Okay, so this was because the dua of Imam against him. Okay, and I'm mentioning it in the context of Abbas alayhi salam is because Imam and Abbas went together to fetch water. Okay, this is Ibn Numa. Now, this is still the 7th, 8th century. You notice the narrative is a very natural narrative coming out. From the 10th century onwards, now you see the narrative now starting to change. Now it's more of a storytelling narrative, a more of imaginative narrative, number 1, and number 2, we see the involvement of ladies and women now. And this is something you might have seen now, a pattern. From the 10th century, in the earlier narratives, the involvement of ladies is very little. Here, the involvement of ladies becomes more and more. And thus, it's more gearing towards an emotional reading of this Ashura's narrative. Okay? So now, come to Mullah Kashifi in 910 Hijrah. Okay? So this is earlier 10th century. In his Rawdat al-Shuhada, notice the narrative altogether changes. It says Abbas was the flag bearer of the army. When he saw the conditions, when he saw the condition of the brothers in the state, okay, and the army in that state, he was filled with grief. Okay, so he comes now to the brother with his flag, and he says, Alam dariyama biqiyamat uftad. Okay, now I will become a flag bearer on the day of judgment. I can't handle this anymore. So I don't want to become a flag bearer anymore. On the day of judgment, the flag bearer, we will see inshallah. Allow me to go fight. Okay, so this is where now the narrative changes. Now Imam, this is something we don't see, is E baradar nishane lashkar man tobudi. Okay, you are the sign of this whole, you are the flag bearer of this army. How can I allow you to go? Okay, if you go, this whole army will disperse. So he turns back to the Imam and says, Dilam as dunya bitang umade. I'm tired now. Can you please allow me to go fight these people? Rather, the word used is وَبِتِغَ إِنْتِقَامِ بَعْزِيَزْ مُدَبِّرَانِ كُوفِ. So the word now, the narrative is of a narrative of revenge. Okay, I want to go seek revenge from these people. So now, another new narrative which comes in is that Imam then turns back to Abbas and tells him that, okay, if you want to go fight, no worries. I'm allowing you to go fight on a condition that you take this message of mine. So I'm giving you a message, take it to them. If they accept the message, then there's no fight. If they don't accept the message, then the allowance of fight will come. So what was the message of the Imam? The message of the Imam was this. A summary of it is that now that everybody has been killed, Abbas is telling the enemy now, through Imam Hussein, this is Imam Hussein's message through Abbas, that one, you will allow us water. So these children and these women need water, allow them to have water. Okay? Aknun mara chandan ab dahid ke atfal wa awrat benushan. Give us some water. And number two, now these are his wordings. Mara begzarid tabarkhizam wa in baqi atfal ke mande. Give me the permission. These children who have remained, I take them with me, and then we go far away towards India or towards Rome or towards Hijaz or wherever we go, we will go away. Allow us to go away. Okay, so two conditions are being set. And then the message of Imam through Abbas alayhi salam is that shart mi kunam ke man fardoy qiyamat bar shuma khasmi na kunam. And I am making a condition and a pledge to you and a promise to you that I will not oppose you on the day of judgment, that I'll not say anything against you on the day of judgment. Okay? I will leave it on Allah to deal with you. Now these are all things we don't see before. Okay? Now, so then Shimr comes in and the army of Umar ibn Sa'd, they refuse this. They say that if you want water, the only way to drink water is to give bay'ah to give pledge of allegiance to Yazid. And Abbas then turns back to the tent. Now this is something we didn't see it earlier again. That Abbas coming to the battlefield and then going back and giving the message. He comes back to the tent and gives the message to the Imam that we have been refused. And suddenly there's cries of Al-Atash and Al-Atash from the children. Okay? Suddenly there's voices are coming out from the tents. So hearing this, Abbas alayhi salam couldn't tolerate anymore. He charges. He says he takes the water skin and he goes towards fetching water. Okay? He says, I cannot endure anymore. I can't have patience anymore and I can't see all this. So I will go and take water. Then he goes. 4,000 people were stationed at Furat, okay, stopping him from accessing water. They said 2,000 of them blocked Abbas alayhi salam on his way. So notice numbers are now coming up now with something which we don't see earlier, okay? So 4,000 are stationed, but 2,000 are blocking him from accessing the water. So then he starts having discussion with them. He says are you not Muslims? Are you disbelievers that you can see that the animals are drinking water, but you're not allowing the family of the Prophet to drink water? So when they heard this, they started attacking him. So 500 people started attacking him. Now 500 people start attacking him. Mullah Kashif, he says that he managed to kill 80 of them. Can you see numbers are now coming in, okay? He killed 80 of them and scattered the rest. The rest managed to scatter and Abbas then managed to reach the water. Okay, now when he reaches the water, he drops down from his mount and his horse and he picks up the water. He wants to drink, but then he remembers his Imam and the children, they have not drank water. Now, this is something also I didn't see in my humble research. We're not questioning the loyalty of Abbas. Wallahi, Abbas would have not drank, okay? But what I'm trying to say is that this narrative, I didn't see it earlier, that Abbas coming down, looking at water, and then he doesn't drink the water, okay? He takes the water with him and he goes further. And then this whole issue comes out that his right hand is severed and his left hand is severed. Now, for the first time again in the narrative comes the whole issue of water skin, Okay, that he now takes the water skin with his teeth now. So this is a 10th century narrative. Okay, now look at the supernatural part of it now. So Abbas turns back in his, so he takes the water in his teeth, and then the arrow pierces it, and the water falls down. So these are the words of Mullah Kashif. He says, Abbas starts questioning. It's like, آیا چه حکمت است که آبی به حلق ما تشنگان نمیرسد. What's the wisdom that water is not reaching to our throats? Why are we not getting water? وَمُنَادِيَ غَيْبِي نِدَا كَرْد. Can you see now the supernatural part of it? A voice came out from the ghaib, from the hidden, telling him that we have prepared for you water in Jannah, in paradise. So you don't need to drink this water because we have prepared for you water in Jannah. Then he falls out from his mount, and then he calls out his brother, Ya akha adrik akha. This is something we don't see even earlier. Because in the earlier versions and the narratives was this, that the brother Imam was together somehow and he could see and he rushed straight away. Here he calls out to the Imam. Now, Mullah Kashifi says, now this is a metaphor or it's a reality. This is a research which is required because a lot of it is recited also, that you see this, yeah, that Siyah Andi Chali and Zameen Karbala ko Larza Aya, and these are things you hear out, that you know that a thunder is on the day of Ashura, a thunder came and a zilzila and an earthquake came and the whole land of Karbala trembled and shook. Now, is this a reality or it's a metaphor? Mullah Kashifi says that Imam alayhi salam, when he heard the cry of Abbas, he sighed, okay? He shouted, he lamented, he complained. That lament was so deep that the whole land started shaking. Okay? This is his words. So then after that, he adds one more narrative, which he says that there was a person by the name of Muhammad Anas in the camp of Imam alayhi salam. When he heard the martyrdom of Abbas alayhi salam, he quickly ran towards the body of Abbas alayhi salam. He dropped himself on the body, he started crying and weeping, and suddenly the enemy comes and attacks him also, and he's also martyred, and he's considered as one of the martyrs. Okay? This is a whole Mullah Kashif's narrative. Can you see the narrative all together, evolving and changing altogether? Okay? Come to 1080 Hijrah. This is the end of the 11th century. There's a scholar by the name of Turayhi in his Muntakhab. The first thing he adds in his narrative is the issue about Imam Abbas alayhi salam doing dua. So when he heard the cries of Al-Atash, so when he came back telling the Imam that they have refused your request. So after this you will notice all the narratives are basically following what Mullah Kashifi has mentioned. Okay, so the narrative is the same. One more addition. When he says that they have refused, he hears the word Al-Atash, Al-Atash. He does dua. This dua is not mentioned in the earlier narratives. Ilahi wa Sayyidi. Okay, I'm crying out to you that I want to prepare my means, and I want to fill water skin for these children. So I want to fill water for them, and I'm preparing my means. Meaning as if, help me, Ya Allah, that I should be able to do it. Okay? Now, one more thing, another thing which Turayhi adds is something which we don't see earlier, is that when Abbas, after being hit, the water skin being hit, he then comes and says, جَاءَ سَهْمٌ آخَرْ فِي صَدْرِهِ. This is something we don't see earlier, that an arrow came and pierced his chest. and that's how apparently he was martyred. Now see the supernaturality of the word again, that here is where he calls out on his brother, Adrikni, come and help me. فَسَاقَ الرِّيحَ الْكَلَامِ إِلَى الْخَيْمَةِ. Okay, supernatural version of the narrative. Okay, here the wind took the statement of Abbas and took it and made it reach the tent. As if the sound of Abbas was so low it couldn't reach naturally. So the wind had to take it and make it reach to the khayma. Another thing he adds, which is not there, was وَحَمَلَ الْعَبَّاسِ إِلَى الْخَيْمَةِ. He takes Abbas alayhi salam to the tents. So after this also you will see a lot of them don't agree with this understanding. That Abbas was taken to the tent and the ladies start crying and weeping again. Okay? One more thing Turayhi does is, just as a point, you will see when he is mentioning his narrative, he's apparently combined the two narratives together. The narrative of the night where Imam sends Abbas and Nafi' to fetch water with 50 people, with the day where Abbas goes and takes water. He combines the two and puts it in one, as if he's showing it's one event. Okay? This was Turayhi in 1080. Come to the 12th century now. Allama Majlisi in his Biharul Anwar, 1110. He is basically sharing similar understanding of Turayhi and Mulla Kashifi. The only thing which I want to mention is here, وَفِي بَعْضِ تَأَلِفَاتِ أَصْحَابِنَا. Okay? He comes and mentions that I found it in the books of certain scholars. Now here is where he doesn't mention the names of the scholars, he doesn't mention the sources. Okay? All what he says is I found in certain books. And this is what in hadith they call wijada. Now, this is where scholars now get divided. Do we trust wijada or no? Meaning a scholar can come and tell me that I found a hadith in certain place in a certain book. He doesn't mention the source, he doesn't mention the narration, doesn't mention the sanad, nothing. He just tells me that he found the narration somewhere. Do I trust that source? Do I trust this statement or no? Okay? This is where now scholars divide themselves into two. There's some who will say, no, we trust the wijada of the likes of Allama Majlisi, the great scholars, okay? The renowned scholars. Now, there's nobody questioning that. The caliber of scholarship of Allama Majlisi is not doubted. The question the other scholars will say is that no, we need to know the source before we accept this narrative. Okay? So, and that is why you will notice that what is being recited also on the pulpits is based on this confidence scholars have and the reciters have on Allama Majlisi, without any source being there earlier. Okay? Rather the narrative then is the same. Come in 1285 Hijrah, a book by the name of Dam'atu Sakiba by somebody called Behbahani. Okay? Now what does Behbahani do? This is end of 13th century. He adds one more narrative. As I said, the narrative is almost the same now. The only thing he adds is here. He says that إِنَّ مِن كَثْرَةِ الْجَرَاحَاتِ الْوَارِدَ عَلَى الْعَبَّاسِ. So Abbas went through so much injury that Imam couldn't take his body back to the tents. فَتَرَكَ جَسَدَهُ فِي مَحَلِّ قَتْلِهِ. And thus Imam left his body where he was. Where Abbas alayhi salam was martyred, that's the exact place Imam left the body. Okay? So, differing with the previous Turayhi's version. Rather, the body was left where it was. Another thing which Behbahani adds is this. لما قتل العباس عليه السلام وحبيب بن مظاهر بان الانكسار في وجه الحسين عليه السلام. Okay? When Abbas and Habib ibn Madahir are martyred, there's a sense of brokenness in the face of Hussein alayhi salam. Now this is something we don't see even earlier. Okay? Imam was broken. Okay? There's nobody who can doubt that. a person like Abbas going to the battlefield and then he gets martyred, Imam would show a lot of signs of sorrow, okay, and brokenness. But the statement is something which we don't find earlier. Now, come to 1286 Hijrah, Mullah Fadil Darbandi in his Asrar al-Shahada. Okay, now he's the first one now who is proposing. So we had Ibn Jawzi initially proposing that Abbas was the first one from the family of Ahlul Bayt to be martyred. He is proposing no, he's the first one to be martyred from all. Okay, and he was martyred also on the 9th of Muharram. That's something we don't see at all. Okay, so notice, علم أن العباس عليه السلام أول شهيد من الشهداء. It should be known that Abbas was the first to be martyred from all the martyrs. Okay? بل المستفاد من كلامه من كلام أبي مخنف. Now this Abi Mikhnaf he is referring to is the fake version of Abi Mikhnaf. He's saying what we understand from Abi Mikhnaf's understanding is that the Shahada and the martyrdom happened وقعت في اليوم التاسع من المحرم. It transpired on the 9th of Muharram, something we don't see at all earlier. Okay? This is Mullah Fazil Darbandi. This is one thing which he adds. The second thing which he adds is a conversation between Imam alayhi salam, Imam Hussein, and Sakina. So this is the first time now we are seeing the presence of Sakina now. Okay, this is not there at all. And number two, we are seeing a conversation between Imam, the father, and the daughter. Okay, now this is something we don't see after Abbas's martyrdom. Now Sakina doesn't know about this, so she comes to her father. أتت إليه سكينة وقالت يا أبتا هل لك علم بعمي العباس. Okay. The Sakina, the daughter, comes to the father and says that, oh my father, do you have any knowledge about my uncle Abbas? Okay, so he has delayed. Has he delayed? Why is he delayed? He had promised to bring me water. وَلَيْسَ لَهُ عَادَةً أَن يَخْلِفَ وَعْدَهُ. It was never his norm to break his promise. So he promised that he will bring water. Where is he now? Did he drink water? What has happened to him? Okay? So the father then turns back to the daughter and says, إِنَّ عَمَّكَ الْعَبَّاسِ قُتِلْ. Oh my daughter, your uncle has been martyred. Now, something we don't again see earlier is Imam was crying. Here now, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ زَيْنَبْ. Now the whole presence of Zainab is now alayhi salam is also coming in. She starts weeping and crying and shouting, Wa akha wa abbasa wa qillata nasira. These are same statements Imam Hussein made them earlier. Now here it's being ascribed to Zainab alayhi salam. Okay? Wa inqita'a dhahra. Imam had done this statement that my back has been broken by your martyrdom. Here it's now being ascribed to Zainab alayhi salam, and the ladies start weeping. Okay. The third narrative which he adds of Mullah Fadil Darbandi, which is not found in the earlier sources, is the whole issue about Imam Ali alayhi salam telling Aqil to go and find him a wife who will then give her will give him a son who is brave, so that they can help him. He can help in Karbala. But look at the context now. Look at how it starts, and that's why I'm mentioning this. Zuhair comes to Abdullah ibn Ja'far ibn Aqil. Now, who is this Abdullah ibn Ja'far ibn Aqil? Is a name which is not found in the narratives. Whoever it is, Abdullah. Zuhair comes to him and tells him that, can you please give me Nawil Narraya, okay? Give me the flag. Can you notice now? In earlier versions, all of that Abbas was given the flag bearer. He was the head of the army, if we can put it that way. Here it's as if Abdullah was the head and the flag bearer. Zuhair is coming to tell him, you give me the flag. Okay? So Abdullah turns back to him and says, what, have I done something wrong? What have I done? So he says, no, you have not done anything wrong, but I have a need with it. I need it for something. So he then gives it to him, and then Zuhair takes it and takes it to Abbas. Okay? So then he turns back. Now the one who is making up this story is not even realizing that Zuhair was not present on the night of the 21st of Ramadan. Okay? Zuhair turns back to Abbas and tells him, I want to tell you something which I've been holding in my heart. Okay? So he says, Abbas turns back to him and says, yes, okay, tell me. What do you want to tell me? So then he tells him this whole incident, that your father commissioned Aqil to go and find you a mother from whom you will be the son who could then protect Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala. Okay? So all this then he tells him, and then he tells him, وَقَدْ ادَّخَرَكَ أَبُوكَ لِمِثْلِ هَذَا الْيَوْمِ Abbas, your father had saved you for a day like this. So فَلَا تُقَصِّرْ عَنْ حَلَائِلِ أَخِيكَ وَأَنْ إِخْوَتِكَ. Okay? وَأَنْ إِخْوَانِكَ. Don't come short on fulfilling your responsibility towards the family of your brother. Okay? So as if he's trying to encourage him towards becoming more courageous. So Abbas turns back to him and tells him, are you making me look more courageous? Are you giving me more courage? Let me tell you, Wallahi, لَأَرَيْنَاكَ شَيْئًا مَا رَأَيْتَهُ قَطْ. I can show you things which you have not seen before this. Okay? Can you see the narrative now? Altogether being a very supernatural narrative, okay? And a narrative which we didn't see it earlier. Come to now 14th century now. Mullah Mahdi Ha'ir is Mazandarani in his Ma'al Sibtain. He then quotes, the reason I'm quoting this is because it's related to the day of Ashura, yeah? He says, on the night of 21st of Ramadan, Imam Ali alayhi salam hugged Abbas alayhi salam. وَضَمَّهُ إِلَى صَدْرِهِ الشَّرِيفِ. He hugged him and told him, وَلَدِي سَتَقِرُّ عَيْنِي بِكَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. You will make me proud on the day of judgment. How will you make me proud? It's like when you go fetch water, okay, you should never drink water while Hussein alayhi salam and the children are thirsty. So you will never drink water. So as if Imam is telling Abbas not to drink water from the 21st of Ramadan. Okay? Come to 1370, Samawi Muhammad in his Absarul Ain fi Ansar al-Hussein. He adds a very small detail. You know why Imam, we saw that earlier, that the reason Imam didn't take Abbas to the tents was because he had a lot of injuries. He says no, the injuries were to a level that he became into pieces. Okay, his limbs had become into pieces, thus they were not carryable to the tent. So Imam left him where he got martyred. Now, in 1393 Hijrah, you have a scholar by the name of Sayyid Muhammad Taqi Bahrul Ulum in his Maqtal al-Hussein. He now apparently is the first one who comes and now talks about Imam not giving permission to Abbas to go and fight. Do you get me? Now this has become the common narrative today, but this is, you see it in now end of 14th century, you see this narrative coming out. So Abbas comes and tells the brother that, Ya Akhi, he tells him that I want to go and fight. So Imam turns back and tells him, Ya Akhi, anta sahib liwa'i. Okay, you are the flag bearer. If you go, the army will disperse. Everybody will disperse. He says, فَلَمْ يَأْذَنْ لَهُ. he was not given the permission to go and fight. So فَعَادَ الْعَبَّاسِ لِلْمَرَّةِ الثَّانِيَةِ. Abbas then came again to ask for permission. When he came to ask for permission, then he tells him, إِذَنْ فَاطْلُبْ لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْأَطْفَالِ قَلِيلًا مِنَ الْمَاءِ. This is something we don't see it at all. And this has become the common narrative today, that Abbas, you will not go and fight. You will go and take water for these children. Okay? This is how we are seeing with in the end of the 14th century. Another thing which Sayyid Bahrul Ulum adds is the call of istighatha, which Imam Hussein does. Okay, أما من مجير يجيرنا أما من مغيث يغيثنا. He says that Imam Hussein did this call and gave this call after the martyrdom of Abbas alayhi salam. Okay? Now, this was a quick summary of the chronological events related to Abbas alayhi salam till the end of 14th century. Come to 15th century now. As I said, I'm just giving one example. Rather, this can be a whole research by itself, that different continents, different speakers should be analyzed to see what do they add in the narrative in regards to their context. Okay, so a person living in India, what does he do? A person living in Pakistan, what does he do? A person living in Iraq, what does he do? And what does a person do in Iran? So I'm just giving an example of Iran. Look at the narrative. The narrative is altogether changing, altogether. Okay, this is something we don't see at all in the earlier narratives. Abbas is passing by this is Mahdi Rasuli now, yeah? The famous Nauha Khan, and he is somebody who recites Masa'ib. As I mentioned that in Iran, the Nauha Khans recite Masa'ib. The ulama basically sitting on the mimbar will recite 2-3 minutes. And probably it's because of this avoiding to recite all these details. And they end up reciting all these details now. Look at what Mahdi Rasuli is doing. He's saying now, Abbas was passing by a tent. This was the tent of Kulthum. Now notice, Kulthum alayhi salam is not mentioned at all in the earlier narratives. He's the first one to mention her now. So he's passing by her tent and she is in a state of crying. So he inquires, what's happening? Okay, so Kulthum turns back and says, who are you? Okay, she says, it's Abbas, Abul Fadl. So she says, come in. So he says, no, it's not proper for me. Khanum bi adabiyas, hamin daredar, hamin damedar. I will not come in. It's disrespect to you for a person like me to come inside. So she turns back to him and says, go biya tu dadash. Chara injuri mikuni ba man wa Zainabu. How come, why are you being like this with me and Zainab? So as if Abbas is being told, come in, he's not going in. Later he goes and mentioning that, I'm telling you to look at me, also you are not looking at me. Why are you doing like this to us? Okay? So then, Amma Abbas harche sadat zadam saret poin, it didn't come, okay? She's saying that as much as I would call you, you are not, you are not opening up and looking at us. Okay? So this is a complaint Kulthum is having towards Abbas. So he turns back and says, Khanum bi adabi nabashad. Madaram gufte saram pishe shoma poin bashad. My mother has told me that I am always supposed to keep my eyes lower in front of you. Why man koja wa shoma koja? Notice this narrative, we are not seeing it at all early. Okay? Where are you and where am I? You are the daughters of Fatima alayha salam, and my mother was a servant to you. Okay? So it's not possible for me to even look at you into your eye. Can you see this emotional narrative coming up, which is not there found earlier at all? So now he turns back to her and says, "But why are you crying then? What is happening?" So she turns back to him and says that everybody has brought somebody to sacrifice on their behalf. Zainab has brought her children to the level that Rubab has even brought her baby. Okay, we'll come to the month old. A baby or a child has been brought by Rabab. Okay, how? I don't have anybody. Okay, that's why I'm crying. So then he turns back and says that غمت نباشه عباس تو که نمرده. Okay, don't worry, don't be sad. I am there for you. فردا میای دستم را میگیری میبری جلوی حسین علیه السلام. Tomorrow you will come and take my hand and take it towards Hussein alayhi salam, and I will die on your behalf. This is altogether not there in the earlier narrative. Okay? And then he goes on further. His narrative is very, very new altogether. This was the whole reason. So in conclusion, the whole reason I'm bringing up these narratives is to show you that how, first of all, this is a question I've been asking from day one, is that are we reading history or are we reading the narrative of the narrator? Okay, this is a research which is required by itself. And number two is to show you how with time and place the narratives are evolving. Okay, so each place, each time is basically adding up something more to the event, and as time goes on, the more supernatural it's becoming and the more ladies are being involved. So the narrative is becoming more emotional and more storytelling. Okay, in the end, let's pray to Allah to give us the tawfiq. This is a dua which I keep on asking Allah, that Allah show us the reality the way it is, especially in the world we are living in, where everything has been darkened. So Allah to show us the reality the way it is. And Allah should help the madhlumeen wherever they are oppressed, especially the madhlumeen of Gaza. May Allah help them. Now there's discussion of ethnic cleansing going on. Now they're being dispersed from their houses. Wallahi, Allah help these oppressed people. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.